Joining me on this week's episode of The Player Position is Training121 founder Morgan BIGGS. Training121 is a supplemental football coaching business in Ireland that has amassed hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Morgan set up Training121 when he was just 16, but in 2023 he was named as the winner of the Digital Business Ireland Next Generation Under 30 Award. Alongside his brother Gary BIGGS and friend Gary Daly, Training121 has grown from coaching local players to now coaching some of Ireland's hottest young prospects, with a vast amount of internationals on his roster. This success has attracted the likes of Lifestyle Sports and STATSports to reach out to Morgan and his team, and he has been involved with campaigns with the likes of Kane and McCabe. Any young entrepreneurs should certainly listen in, as Morgan's ambition, intelligence and grounded mentality shines through in this week's episode of The Player Position. Morgan, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for taking your time. How are you keeping?
My pleasure. Yeah, all's well, thankfully. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for asking me on.
Cheers. I suppose we'll start with kind of want to get a background of you. You as a person before we move on to Training121. So, what would be your background in football from a young age?
Playing wise, I played at the time. There was not really the National League, like the underage National League system. That kind of came in when I was 17. So I was playing top DDSL. Premier, I went over from I started playing Maynooth. That's called, was my local football. And then I think at 11s, under 11s at the time, under 12s. When it was 11 aside, I went straight into home farm and then kind of just moved between different clubs. At DDSL level, and then I stopped at Kevin's when I was 18, and that was pretty much my playing career. I knew from 14, 15 I didn't want to, although maybe consciously I thought I wanted to be a pro, but subconsciously I definitely didn't. So by the time I got to 18 I knew I was done, and that's kind of when I was obviously finishing school, getting into college, and I'd obviously started the idea of Training121 a little bit prior to that, but I didn't know what it was going to be. But I think, again, subconsciously, that's probably what was in the back of my mind. So that was kind of my playing career, per se, if you could even call it a career. It was all just schoolboy football until I finished up, really.
And like you said there, so you had the idea of Training121 when you were coming to the end of school. But when you were younger, did you always feel like you had a bit of a business mindset, in terms of, did you ever have any other ventures in any kind of business thing?
Yeah, so... my dad ran, obviously completely different industry, but he was a owner of a car body shop, repair shop, car body repair. So he kind of had the business mindset, the genetics per se for it. And myself and my brother Gary, who was obviously one of the co-founders, we were kind of driven in that way as well. So again, probably subconsciously, it was always in the back of my mind. I'd always been into kind of doing creative stuff in and around, not exactly forming businesses, but more so from a content side of things. And that obviously Training121 has molded out of that. But yeah, there was definitely lots of things I was trying, very generic stuff. But I remember when I was younger, when I was living in Maynooth, doing sweet shops and things like that. That idea, there was always small, stupid stuff like that, and it sounds fairly generic. But that there was things like that subconsciously, and I'd probably have to do some reflection on it. But there definitely is some early indicators that something along the lines of business was going to be what I got into. And luckily enough, we were able to tie it up with football, which obviously we all love, and then with content creation, which is more so my kind of passion, my side of things. So it all fell into place nicely, but definitely from a young age there was tendencies kind of leaning towards it. So I don't think it's any real surprise that we kind of got into what we did now.
And you said there about when you were coming to the end of school, obviously you went to college in Maynooth. Then, did you have any plan kind of leaving school? Did you always have this idea that you're going to do something like this, or did you think you'd just be going into a kind of standard 9-to-5 job when you came out of college?
It wasn't, again, I don't think it was something that was conscious top of mind, but I knew I wasn't going to go into a 9-to-5 anyway. I know people say that, and whatever happens in life happens, but it was just never on my radar. Even for example in TY, when you're doing work experience and stuff, I just didn't do it. If it wasn't something that I wasn't interested in, I wasn't going to do it. And again, it kind of, upon some reflection and hindsight, that kind of makes sense as to why we've kind of got into, or I've personally got into what we're doing now. So no, not really. There was no real plan for it. Kind of the fundamentals were already there in terms of training one-to-one while I was in college. So that was leaving lectures early to go and do sessions just with local players, and kind of, so we were putting in the tougher phase, the groundwork in that stage where I had time and I could do it, and I wasn't locked down to any crazy schedule, or I wasn't locked into a job. Thankfully, like my mom and dad were very good for that. They didn't force me to go and do anything. Now, I think they should have if I was lazy, but I was always doing stuff. I wasn't just sitting around. It was always kind of pushing towards this. And of course, once they started to see it started to pick up and other things started coming around, rather than just working with local players and stuff, I think then that opened up the avenue where they kind of just let me roam free and do what was required to get to the stage where we're at now, which is, again, a blessing. We're lucky to have that. But yeah, like when I was in college, it was just a case of every day just doing something that we call it now moving the needle, just keep pushing it forward, see what's going to keep slowly progressing us, whether that be taking in new players, adding new sessions. Then obviously the business side of things starts to develop. Obviously COVID was a big help for that. Thankfully, I was obviously still in college during COVID, so that was a help that I could be at home, and that's when the kind of it was the perfect timing for the content creation side of things, and then that started building up, and that became a huge part of the business model. But yeah, in terms of like pre-plans and stuff, I don't think we could have pre-planned for a lot of it. It was just a case of every single day doing something productive, move the needle a little bit, and eventually you'll end up where you're meant to be.
And originally, like, where did the idea come from? Like, was it a gap in the market you saw, or was it someone that you knew who wanted to be coached, or how did it come about?
Like the other two co-founders, so it's obviously myself, my brother Gary, and then Gary Daly, who's our best mate. They were coaching from a very young age compared to me, so I would have been playing up until 18. Obviously, I was doing coaching since I was 16, but only on a supplemental side of things. They were on the team side of things. And when I was younger, it's probably something I seeked was extra sessions. There was nothing really at the time. Supplemental coaching was huge in the US, UK, which I obviously didn't know at the time. Only that we started to get into the market, we started to see what other people were doing. So like when we would have started, I would have been like 16, just working with local players for free, local parks, whatever. Just, again, the generic enough story of coaching. But the lads had put in a lot of early doors groundwork with working with players across Dublin and different clubs and whatnot. And then they got to National League level in terms of coaching. So it wasn't a case of like spotting a gap in the market. There definitely was at the time. We got kind of first mover advantage in Ireland anyway, I think. There was obviously a couple others doing it, but we pushed it big time, more so on socials and things like that. And again, we got lucky in that sense, but we done well with that luck. We got in at the right time. So yeah, no, when we were doing it, it wasn't a case of, again, the idea of pre-planning it. It was just every day slowly moving towards what it's ended up becoming. But like, I would have made the Instagram page when I was in TY, so I was 16, with the same name, same logo and stuff. It was just a case of I hadn't a clue what the hell it was going to be. There was no like pre-plan for it. I just named it. The name made sense at the time. Ended up drawing the logo and got someone to do it up for me and things like that. Simple stuff, but there was no plan for what it would become then. Like at 16, obviously I was still playing, focused on that, focused on school, getting into college. And then come in around COVID time, that's where we really started to push it on. And I knew obviously before that, but definitely consciously up to that stage, I was like, right, this is something that we need to make full time, or I do anyway, from my own personal sanity, just my personal life. That's what I wanted to do. And yeah, we got to that stage. But yeah, it pretty much started with just working with local players. You start to post on Instagram, things like that. The early doors of doing that made a huge difference. Again, you get that first mover advantage. People start to see what you're doing before anyone else does, and then just from there, word goes around, and then we end up where we are now.
And like at the time, did you see it as a risk going full time? Because obviously so much people would just do that as like a side thing. But obviously it was very big at the stage when you decided to do that. But did you see it as a risk, or did you see it as a decision that had to be made?
For me, I didn't. I thankfully just whatever way it came about at the time, I didn't see or didn't feel risk. There obviously is risk. There's things that can go on in life, and listen, we're not in an absolutely incredible position where we can kind of do whatever we want all day, every day. It is a lot of hard work that goes into it, but to do this full time is a blessing. Like, every so often we do need to reflect on it, I think, and be like, geez, there's very few full-time football positions in the country. And the fact we can mold our own and not have it just be football, we can get into our own innate interests, like mine being content creation, that I can do that it's amazing. So at the time, no, I didn't feel risk, and there definitely was. The sake of going out and committing full-time to it is tough to do. But like when I was in college, there was nothing else I was considering bar getting it to the stage where we could go full-time. So at the moment, we only, like on paper, have 2 full-time staff, myself and Gary Daly. 2 of the 3 co-founders are full-time, and then my brother Gary, he works a full-time job as well. But like obviously that takes on a lot of burden, and that's a lot of work, but we're all willing to do it. Obviously for myself and Daly, we're lucky to do this full-time, but for Gary to do that as well on top of it, it's a crazy amount of workload. It's a crazy life to try balance. Then obviously there's other things as well in personal lives that you want to look after as well. So you're risking all of that, the social factors, the ideas of if you want to take a day off during the week or be relaxed in the evening. We don't really have the opportunity to do that a lot of the time. We're getting to the stage now where we can, and we need to be more mindful of that because it's very easy to burn out. But yeah, no, at the time I didn't feel a risk, although I probably should have.
And you talked so much about your like passion for content creation. Like, where did that come from, and where did you get good at it? Like, did you learn it from someone, or was it something you learned as you went along?
I think early doors I had massive innate interest in it. I probably couldn't articulate that when I was younger. I liked watching content, obviously, like everyone does, but I like watching behind the scenes things, the actual nitty gritty of how it works. So I'm not much behind the camera in terms of like actually operating the hardware per se, but I'd be more so in the back end, so running the socials and kind of just spending a lot of time on socials. Again, it's just an innate interest, so it's something I have a passion for, but also I picked up to be quite good at over time. But again, that's just hours and hours and hours of spending time watching videos, doing your own work, like I still do content creation, so I'll edit videos still to this day. Obviously, we have a great content team in Finn and Patrick that are just outrageous at what they do, which makes my job a lot easier. But more so I take the back end side of things and kind of run some of the creative along, obviously, with the lads. They have a pretty much free reign, to be honest. They kind of, we've got to the stage now where we just communicate. They kind of do as they like, and as long as it aligns with what we're doing, then perfect. But yeah, the passion for it, and I think that's just innate, like I said. But the reps, like we would do with if we're training someone, you're working on finishing, it's just reps, just spend time doing it, try different things, and learn as you go along. Again, by good timing, COVID allowed to expand, like upskill a little bit. So that's when I would have gone into more of the graphic stuff. Basic enough now, to be honest with you, but it's gotten to a decent stage now where we don't need to offload any of that work. I can do it, or the lads can do it. We've all kind of taught each other different things where you don't need to outsource anything. We can keep it all internal, which also is good for just for our messaging, our tone. It's us. It's not us paying someone to do it. It's actually us doing it, which obviously brings you a little bit closer to community and stuff. It's the same terminology, same language. So yeah, again, it's very basic, generic information, but it was just spending so much hours on it, watching stuff, listening to stuff, doing actions. You can watch all the stuff in the world, but if you're not actually actively doing it, recording things, like our first video we recorded, myself and Daly done it in Maynooth, and we say this quite a lot. It's almost like a silly story, but our tripod was just a runner, just a shoe with a phone in it, and then eventually you learn how does a tripod work, right? So if I move the camera this way, how does this look? And then you start to learn about lighting. Then you start to bring in people, and they've got really good knowledge about certain aspects of content creation. Then we start to go down different avenues, and you just surround yourself with good people like that. And we've been on some great sets as well. The likes of STATSports and stuff, you learn a lot off them when you're on set, either on camera or behind the camera. And then obviously working with the likes of lifestyle, again, you're in around all these different creative circles that eventually you get to the stage where you pick up so much information and you just make it your own. But yeah, you need to put in, similar to us, working, like leaving lectures and running from venue to venue. From a coaching perspective, you have to do the exact same thing pretty much with content creation. You can't just go straight from a course if you're doing it and then just bang straight in and think you're the bee's knees and it's all done. You need to put in the hard graft, as they say, early doors, and again, you'll learn by doing, making mistakes. Again, as generic as that sounds, but that's pretty much how we've got to the stage where we're at.
And obviously online now, like you've built such a powerful brand to the point where, you know, the likes of Lifestyle Sports are getting involved. Like, did you always look at Training121 as a brand from when you started coaching, or did you only kind of really see it as more of like an international thing rather than like a, you know, just like a local lad training people? Like, when did that shift, or was it a shift?
There was a shift, as in for Training121, but prior to that, our intentions was always going to go down that way. Like to scale and to be big, we don't want to just be big in Ireland. We want to be big globally. And again, social media allows you to do that. You can get the message out there much easier. It's much easier to scale. So no, that was always the plan. We've seen Training121 as a brand from the moment we created it. Obviously, you need to get into further discussions and how we go about that. And again, we've put good plans in place to get to that stage. But yeah, no, everything has been intentional with the idea of growing the model. Like the main thing we need to do is bring value, and the majority of people we bring value to is physically in person with players, whether it be a 5-year-old or a professional footballer. That is the key thing. But a second part, and one of the biggest parts of our business model, is then content creation. So bringing value to brands, bringing value to ourselves, bringing value to our community through how we communicate through content. And that was always intentional. That's what top brands do. That's what we try to do. So yeah, that was always the plan to go down that route.
And like, who was your first professional footballer, like, and how did that come about?
The first player we actually ever worked with, like properly under the Training121 name, was actually Paddy Kirk, who worked for us. He's now head of creative direction here at Training121, and he's obviously a top content creator, but also a top footballer. He was actually the first pro player we had worked with when he was at Bowes at his first stint. So we would have traveled to Raheny to him at the time, but again, we were naive then. We were very small, still very much learning the trade, but that was a fantastic place to start. And then when players kind of outside of Ireland started coming in, Roland came in. He was after signing for Shrewsbury. He was with Waterford last year. He came in the summer. That would have been probably 3 summers ago now, maybe even 4, but I think 3. And he obviously is a big name, big character. So when players started seeing him come in, and fair play to him for making the jump. Obviously, when he came in, it was a privilege to have him in the doors for the first time. It was kind of the first time someone from outside of our general kind of radius of players that we know of or work with kind of contacted us. And then from there, the likes of Andrew Omobamidele would have came in that summer. Gabe, Adabambo, all them would have came in that summer. And then that's what kicked it off. And then obviously at that time, that's when like the pre-season started becoming like a sexy thing to do for footballers, to be honest. That's when everyone kind of wanted to do it. And again, the right timing, but we were ready for that timing. And obviously all the content that goes around that helps. But that would have been how it started. And then if you're bringing value, like I said, the most important thing, if you're bringing value to these players and you form good relationships with them, it just multiplies. The word goes around. Football is a small network, although there's hundreds, thousands of staff, players, millions. The word goes around internally. And then luckily enough, we've been able to scale it and grow it over the last couple of years.
And like, when a player comes to you or to either the two lads, like, what is it mainly that they're looking for? Like, is it sometimes to keep sharp or to improve a certain aspect of their game, or what would be the kind of average thing that a player would ask for?
Yeah, it does depend on outcome. So if either we reach out to someone or someone reaches out to us, we'll suss them out immediately on like what their outcomes are. So some just want to, again, stay sharp, take over. And again, that's fine. If that's what their outcomes are, you're just trying to give them as many different touches as possible, different variations, some position-specific stuff. And we'll always try to give them something a little bit different that they're going to be doing in their team sessions. That's the natural case of supplemental coaching anyway. But again, that will depend on their outcomes. Some of them will come in with some very specific information, but they go, I want to improve this, and we'll just stick on it for weeks, months, depending on how long they're in. And obviously some of them need to balance international duty. Like we had a lot of lads, the 21s on international duty this summer. So some of them will come in, tell us their week schedule. I'm going to be here this day, this day, this day. Then they'll go off, then they'll come back and we'll kind of revisit what we were just working on. So some is very niche, some very specific stuff. And then some is just a little bit more broad. Again, it depends on the outcomes of the player, but that's communicated very early with them. Obviously some players' schedules are all over the place. Some have holidays and other things that they need to tend to. So we might not see them as much as they would like and as we would like. Some can be in pretty much every day for weeks, which is great. That's when we can maximize our workload. But yeah, like one thing we'll always try to implement is our scanning work. That's something we've put a lot of time into researching, but also like implementing with every player that we've had in. So we'll always kind of add that into our sessions anyway. Obviously make it contextual to the player and position and whatnot. But yeah, it generally depends on their outcomes. Some of them, to be honest with you, especially younger lads, don't really know what they want to work on. They just want to do something. They see older pros doing, go, I want to do something a little bit extra, and then we'll look at them or watch some footage depending on what they're doing with us. If they're going to be in for a long time, we'll watch their footage, get a lot of their data. Again, the data is good. It helps aid a lot of things we're working on, but to see them physically play in the flesh, you'll be able to then make adjustments to your program with them. So once they get in for the first time, we'll pretty much be able to tell them what exactly we're going to touch on for a while. And for one player, that might just be one specific touch or one specific finish. And that's a minor percentage that they'll bring into next year. They get 1,000 reps in a certain area of the box. That's going to be a better player going into the new season. So that's pretty much how we treat it. We're not going to evolve them and they're going to be absolutely incredible overnight. That's not how it works. They're already very good players when they come in, and we're just trying to make them slight bit better regardless of what their outcomes are. That's always the aim. Bring them value, make sure obviously they enjoy it, and a lot of them do, thankfully, because it's so different to what they'll do in their team sessions. It's about them, and of course everyone likes that. They want it to be about themselves and more specific to themselves. But yeah, overall, the most common thing we'd get is someone coming in to either, I just want to sharpen or I want to stay sharp. That's generally when they're not in for as long. And then if they're going to be in for a longer period, we'll go back and forth with them for a long time before the off season kicks off and go through their outcomes. What exactly do they want to chase? And then we'll base the program around that.
And obviously then as Training121 is growing, like brands are seeing this, they're wanting to become a part of it. Like, how did it feel for you when obviously the likes of Lifestyle and STATSports and other brands are getting involved? And how did it come about? Are they reaching out to you, or how is it happening?
A lot of them are quite similar in how we would kind of form a relationship. It's the idea of like landing and expanding. So either we'll reach out to them or they'll reach out to us. You kind of make that initial contact. So to give our partners Lifestyle Sports as a case study, like we would have done a giveaway with them in 2020, so during COVID, just like a one-off giveaway, just form a good relationship. The demographics were a perfect match. They obviously were seeing what we were doing, and obviously we want to collaborate with the best brands in the country. So it made sense. We've done a giveaway. It was a success. We formed a good relationship with them. Then something else comes up and it's like, oh, the lads might be useful for that. And then we kind of get into that relationship. You start to dig in a little bit deeper with them and start to form proper connections and relationships with them. And then it just happens organically. Thankfully, like it's not rushed or forced. When the time is right, and the time was right for our current partnership we have with them, where we'll produce X amount of content for them. But obviously we're a part of their community now. We're part of their brand. A lot of people will see Training121 associated with Lifestyle Sports and vice versa. We'll do bigger campaigns for them and whatnot. So it's a case of just forming that connection, that relationship, if it's authentic, if it's real. And then from there, once you're in the door with these people, like anything, it's like a good footballer getting in the door with a good gaffer. If it makes sense and the connection forms, that's something that's going to grow long term organically. You don't need to force it. And with all the brands we work with, we have that. Thankfully, like we wouldn't go and work with brands you don't, first of all, like or align with, or if it just doesn't make sense, we just won't do it. Simple as. So that's kind of how them ones come about. The idea of landing and expanding, make first contact or they contact us, and then just show them what we can do what we naturally do, bring value, and if it makes sense, it will grow organically anyway.
And then obviously with STATSports, you had that shoot with Harry Kane that I think a lot of people would have seen. Like that must have been an amazing moment. Like, what was that day like?
It was a good insight into just the high caliber of working on sets like that, shoots like that. STATSports are excellent. We have a great relationship with them, thankfully. But that day was obviously it's a bit surreal. But again, I was there to work. Finn, who's on our county team, was there as well. He was there to work. You're there to do a job. And obviously we were very well prepped for it. STATSports obviously are excellent on that side of things as well. But like the opportunity to do that is, again, I've said the word a few times, but it is a blessing to do that. But all the work we had put in prior to that point allows something like that to open up at the right time, and it did. And we were there to fit the bill. We fit the criteria of someone who might be able to get in there and do coaching and be a personality on camera and help with even behind the scenes stuff and whatnot on the set. So it just made sense at the time. But the actual day itself is really strategically run. There's so many spinning plates, to be honest. You forget how much is actually going on in them days that can go wrong, that can go right. The amount of small little details, like I wouldn't have even considered now. Obviously I do with bigger players and when you're on shoots or sets of them, but like things like security and things like that, you completely forget that that's a very important factor from the moment they arrive, that like if someone gets wind that they're here, and obviously some people end up turning up, the people can do anything, like that they pretty much have free access to them unless you have like security and things like that there. So that's just like an interesting insight. I was not surprised by it, but I wasn't anticipating things like that. And then how the actual day runs itself, it's super efficient. You can get so much done with a personality and character, and obviously someone as big of a player as that, they feature in anything and it's going to do well. Obviously he's a big ambassador for STATSports, so they do a lot of work with him anyway, so they already had a good relationship with him. But yeah, like my role in it is small enough, but it's very important that it's done really well. So the amount of prep that had to go into it was substantial and on very little notice as well, because these players have such busy schedules that a lot of the time you'll only find out a week or even sometimes a couple of days beforehand. Like for example, when we shot with Kane and McCabe in Abbottstown in Ireland just before the World Cup with STATSports as well, that was a case of they literally just found out a couple of days beforehand she's available. They were wanting to work with her obviously for a long time. She's another big ambassador for them, and she's had a crazy hectic schedule leading up to the World Cup at the time. So their time is precious and it's limited. So as soon as that comes up, it's like immediately everyone just flicks at the gear, and you have to get everything prepared, everything planned out. And obviously on the day you forget little things like weather might change, or if you're outdoors something else might happen. And again, there's a lot of moving cogs, as you know, obviously in the media game as well. There's so much going on that it's hard to anticipate for everything. So, but you're trying to give yourself the best opportunity to get the best value possible out of these top characters and people. And our role there is just to facilitate that, and again, bring our side of the coin, bring as much value as we can as well.
And then just for you personally, like how do you find balancing your own time? Obviously you have so much different aspects to running Training 121, but then you also have to have, time to yourself and stuff like that. Like, do you find that difficult because you're the owner, the runner with the two other lads?
Yeah, it's tough, very tough. Something that I've struggled with recently, to be quite honest. Like a lot of time is taken up by that, and it has been. And again, it's great to do that. And I think I've discussed it a lot of time with different people recently. Just a lot of time, should I say, just with people that are close to me. About how I could be managing time better and taking time off when you can, and getting away from the laptop when you can. Because I was definitely in that rabbit hole of just every single day, nonstop. When I didn't need to be, I would stay on and do a couple extra things. Although it was productive and it was moving the needle, we didn't have to do it. And again, a lot of that work that the three of us put in and everyone else that we brought on board has got us to where we are now, that we can dial back our own personal time a little bit more now, because it's necessary. Like, I don't want to be 50 and just when I retire be done, like can't move, can't do anything. That's the last thing I want. And even if you can retire earlier, great, you can enjoy the rest of your life. Not that I'm not enjoying now, but yeah, it's very easy early doors with the type of life that we live to be, especially football as well, to be locked in it all day, every day. And then when you stop, it's a disaster. So very much still in the learning period of myself. How do I function? How do I think? Taking moments to myself is difficult, but I'm definitely doing more of it now. Like, for example, today I'll go and do a float. So just an hour to myself, nothing else going on. Like, I didn't take any of that time even 6 months ago, a year ago. Now I am, and it's making a difference. It starts to bring some other things like to the limelight as well that you probably need to address, which is great. That's exactly what I want to do. By the time I get to hopefully having a family and whatnot, like, I need to be available for that, and not just physically but mentally as well, be able to balance the two. So I very much in the early stages of that, like learning how to balance personal time, but it's an absolute necessity. You can get locked in that in the rat race and go down rabbit holes where you just can't get out of it, and when you do, it could be too late. Like that, by the time you've burnt out and realize it, it's too late. Like, and some of them you can't even get back to your normal self, which is, it happens a lot, especially in the business game. So yeah, we're very aware of it, the three of us and everyone else involved, that's a strong possibility. So very much trying to manage time correctly. It is tough. It's very much learning about yourself as well. So, but it's a necessity if you want to have an enjoyable life, to be honest.
And like, when you're taking time, like, let's say if you're going on a holiday, or like you're saying, you're having a float where you just have an hour to yourself, like, do you find it hard to switch off in that time? Like, do you still find yourself just constantly thinking about different ways to improve or to grow the business?
Very much so. Yeah, it's still on overdrive. Definitely better now than what I was. Like, I went on a holiday last summer, yeah, and I just may as well not have been there, which is a problem. Like, that shouldn't be the case. Just physically couldn't switch off, mentally, and then your body starts to go and overthinking. There's so many small little things that can go on, and that's just unsustainable, unhealthy. So I've definitely gotten better at that recently. I had no choice, to be honest. I think if I carried on like that and didn't address it consciously, it would have maybe been 5-10 years down the line where it would have hit. But when it would have hit, I don't think I would have been able to recover from it. So again, it sounds all doom and gloom, but this is important stuff to learn at a young age. I could still consider myself quite young, definitely in business terms. I'm only 24, like, so I've got loads of time to learn all this stuff. So yeah, I'm putting in that groundwork now, taking time, learning how to meditate properly. Again, trying new stuff. So like walks, floats is only something I started doing recently just to try it. I heard about it. I was like, let me give it a go, find what works for me. Like, even doing other small things. I've picked up darts recently, all the craze of darts. I was like, I'll just buy a dartboard, see if I like it. I do. So that gives me 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day to not be thinking about anything else. And all that compounds, much like if you do little bits of work, productive work, that compounds. It's the exact same thing in personal life as well. So it's trying to find that happy balance. What I've discussed recently is like becoming a hybrid. So having a personal life, but also having business. And when you're in business, you're in business. When you're in personal life, be there, not just physically, but mentally as well. So it's trying to balance all that out. You hear people all the time talking about work-life balance, and that's kind of the process I'm trying to find now. I want to not be 24/7 all in on work. I was, and it was productive. Don't get me wrong. It got us to a very good stage with the two lads as well. We were pretty much all in, but that is a detriment elsewhere. So yeah, definitely just learning how to balance the two at the moment, and like being open to explore new things that I might enjoy and something that might take my mind away from it. And so that's probably advice that I'd give to a lot of people. Again, I'm still learning about, but just try new things. If you think you like physical activity, try a new sport, walk, swim, do something that's different out of the comfort zone maybe. And it could be the perfect thing just to completely give you a buzz for something else, but keep you away from overworking, overstimulating things in the work mind. So yeah, that's kind of my balance at the moment, trying to become a hybrid. Still very much working on it.
And like, obviously over the years, like, you've got hundreds of thousands of followers on multiple platforms. And like obviously it's well deserved. Like you've put so much work into it. But do you feel like if you've been putting this much work in, but you hadn't really seen the rewards as much yet, it would be as hard to stay motivated? Or do you still feel like it's just the joy of doing it that is actually the main thing, and this is all just a byproduct of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. The enjoyment and everything that we do leads to, thankfully for us, a lot of value for a lot of people, and therefore the byproduct is followers, engagement, people like recognize you and whatnot from a brand point of view, from just general day-to-day life. But like if the process wasn't enjoyable, I would have stopped it. Even if we were seeing all the followers, I would have stopped it a long time ago. Probably easy now to say that we have the backing and luckily enough to have the fantastic community that we have. But like motivation is very much short term. Like I can be motivated now. Like today, yes, I wasn't motivated at all. Couldn't do anything, to be quite honest. I couldn't work. Had to just take a day to just walk around and just think. But that can happen, like, because motivation is so short term. But the love we have for what we do in our community and representing the brand, Training121, and obviously matching that with a positive personal life as well, and being around good people, that's what drives the everyday, the work, the grind, as people say. I don't like to overuse that because it can be, again, made too sexy, the idea of the grind and whatnot, and that can lead to a lot of problems. But like the motivation is something that is just, again, if we didn't have an interest in it, we wouldn't be doing it anyway. So a lot of people will chase from a content side of things, like chase the followers, chase this, chase that. By all means, it's great. It's really important for us to have that. It gives us credibility. It shows that we can grow something both physically on pitch, but also off pitch as well. So don't get me wrong, it's very important and it's something we take a lot of pride in. But if that wasn't there, you can guarantee we'd still be doing what we're doing. As long as it was bringing value to as many people as possible and we were enjoying it, then that's it. That's pretty much all that matters. Because again, the end goal, if my end goal was, let's say, content team hits 300,000 followers on TikTok, like we got that not so long ago, then what would we be doing now? Would you be like, right, well, that's done. It's a numerical goal. Ours are more so qualitative, where it's like, right, are we still enjoying doing the content? We had a little mix up at the end of the year. We're like, let's mix up the content a little bit. Let's keep it fresh. Let's enjoy doing it, learn what works, what doesn't work. And that kind of gives you a re-spark every couple of months as well. So that's the process. That's what's fun about it. And then the results, when results come out, it's brilliant. But like, as we've gone up and up and up and up, whether that be with a new player or something happens with the content team, that's great. Or we go to an event, it's very short-lived. We're present while we're there, which is great. We enjoy it, but it's short-lived. So if you're only living for them little highs, then what's the point in doing it? So it is the idea of loving the everyday process of it. It's not always easy, but again, the majority of the time it is, thankfully.
Yeah, I think that's a very healthy way of looking at it. Like, I think so much people would say, oh, I'd love to work with this player, like a big Premier League player or whatever, like you have done. But as you said, that's only a moment in time. But like longer term, what can fans of Training121 expect from you, like in terms of the next, let's say, 5-10 years? Like, what is the kind of aims that you have over that time period?
Yeah, we get asked this a lot, and it's hard to pre-plan in the simplest form. And I might sound like a broken record, but we aim to bring more value to more people, and evolve that value. So it's always new, it's always fresh. It's trying to do as much positive things as we can for as many people as possible. So if that means us going globally, trying new things abroad, obviously here we want to dominate Ireland. We want to have venues branching all over different counties. That's the aim, dominate here, and we're in the process of doing that, of bringing, again, as much on-pitch value to as many people as possible, and into our wider community in terms of socials globally, giving them as much insights and as much value as we possibly can. Value is quite a broad statement, but whatever that might be in terms of pieces of content, or just having conversations with people, or working with coaches, working with parents, whatever it might be. As long as we're doing that at scale and helping as many people as we can in our capacity, without, like, again, personally us burning out or our staff burning out, as long as we as a brand keep enjoying it, then that's pretty much all that matters. If we're enjoying it, we are definitely going to enjoy bringing value to what we do. So as long as many people across the world can gain value from us, you can guarantee we'll be happy to be bringing it. So yeah, it's hard to define, Adam, to be honest with you, like where exactly we want to go. We're very open to new possibilities. Again, if something comes up that makes sense, we can fast track very quickly. That you might plan for something 5 years down the line, and within 6 months it can arrive at your doorstep. But yeah, like one thing we'll guarantee, we'll never rush into something that doesn't feel right. If it's right, we will grab it and we will go with it, and we'll make sure to optimize it. But if something's not right, we won't bring it to market. We won't even entertain it. So yeah, we're kind of at that stage now where we're very open to new ideas. We do have a lot of ideas and plans, but they're nothing without execution. So it's hard to define what is next. But if we can continue what we're doing now and do that forever, that's also a blessing as well, you know.
Well, Morgan, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time and everything. I think it'll be great for young people, especially people who are like entrepreneurial, to hear a conversation like that, or even just football fans and people who follow Training121. So you provided a lot of great insight there. So thanks so much for your time.
I really appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on.